Hi everybody, I'm Tim Derling. This is Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I thank you for tuning in. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite unsung artists and someone I've never done a full episode on because I guess I've been waiting for either new music or maybe to get a few more of his albums in different formats. But I thought that now was as good a time as any to do an episode on Aldo Nova. Now, to a lot of you out there, Aldo Nova means one thing, and that's 1982's Fantasy, his signature song, big hit single, and honestly, probably one of my favorite songs of all time. It is amazing. This isn't one of those cases where I'm saying that an artist is sometimes considered a one-hit wonder, hit with a song that isn't representative. That's not the case at all. It's an amazing song. It's totally him. That's the one that, for whatever reason, connected with people, but Aldo's got a lot of great music, and he's got a lot of great music yet to come. Right now, he's working on, he's calling it an EP, but it's 9 songs. It's called The Life and Times of Eddie Gage. If you want to follow him, he's on Facebook, and he's pretty active on there, and he's got some previews of some new songs. And, I'm definitely looking forward to that when it comes out. But I thought, for now, I would go through what I have for Aldo Nova music. And he's one of those artists like Coney Hatch and Vandenberg and, Blue Murder. I just wish there was more music to talk about because, like pretty much everything he's done. So I'll go all the way back to the beginning, of course. His biggest album, the one album everyone owned by him, if they had one, was his self-titled debut from 1982. It was on Portrait Records. And, this album went double platinum, sold a couple million copies. This contained Fantasy. And this is a Canadian copy here. And what's always been unusual to me about this record is that, okay, so there's the spine, and here's where the record opened. So normally on a sleeve like this, you'd think it would come out here and the spine be here, but no, it's sideways. I've never seen a copy that's different than that. And the copy I have does not have the lyric sleeve or credits. That's what the record itself looks like with this red portrait label. It's the only one of his albums that I have in the hallowed 8-track format. This is a U.S. Columbia House issue. It was issued, I've seen a Canadian Columbia House issue as well. I don't know if it was ever a retail issue. It wouldn't surprise me if there was. It was early 1982 when this came out. Certainly they were still making retail 8-tracks. I've just never come across one. But anyway, that's Aldo's first album on 8-track. Here it is on cassette. This is obviously a reissue. It's a nice clear later issue Sony cassette. And got it on CD too. It's not an original, but I don't think the original CD would have looked much different than this, just a US copy. That's what the CD itself looked like. And so what I'm missing on the version of the record that I have with these lyrics here and this sort of black and white, if it's a drawing or a photo of him. Great melodic rock album. If you like Night Ranger, early Bon Jovi, it's guitars, keyboards, it's just melodic. Journey, it's just really good melodic rock. And don't stop with Fantasy, keep on going. Listen to the whole thing. Second album came out in 1983, and apparently, as the story goes, he was under a lot of pressure from the record label to do something that was equally commercial. He wanted to do a concept album set in sort of a post-apocalyptic world. I'm not even kidding. In the end, there was sort of a compromise, and this came out called Subject Aldo Nova. I love the colors on this one. He had this sort of pendant design for it. This is a Canadian issue on Portrait CBS. Minor hit single off of this one in the song Monkey on My Back, which was one of the earliest sort of anti-drug songs, and the video is very potent in that way. It might be a little dated by today's standards. There's all the lyrics. Another song of note on here is his cover of a song that was only about a year old when it came out, Hey Operator by Coney Hatch. Now, I prefer the Coney Hatch version myself, but this made Carl Dixon a lot of money because this album did eventually go gold in the States. It wasn't as successful as his first album, but it did all right. And here's a copy of it on a cassette. This is an old Canadian CBS issue prior to the chromium dioxide tapes, started in 1984, and that's when they started being white on the side and not this yellowish color. See where CBS is emblazoned, or set in on the case itself, and there's the tape. This also came out on 8 tracks, the only other one of his albums that did. I can't find it, it's a rare one. And here it is on CD. This is a US CD. I don't know which album I like more, the first one or the second one. I like them both quite a bit. You might be thrown off by the production on this album. It is kind of dated. You've got a very electronic drum sound, although I think what you're hearing is a human playing electronic drums because there are actual drum fills on it. But like I said, it's very much of its time. But the songs themselves are good. 1985, third Aldo Nova album, still on Portrait CBS. So this was, over 2 years went in between Subject and this album. That was a long time back in the 80s. He always did a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, songwriting and production for other acts. So then this album comes out. Aldo's looking all Miami Vice on it, got a pink guitar. It's called Twitch, and this is a US edition on Portrait CBS. If this looks like a light, like maybe sort of a yacht rock album, it's not, but it's pretty light. It's pretty pop. With the exception of a couple of songs that Anton Fig and Alan Schwartzberg played on, this is all Linn drums, so it's all drum machines. So that really dates it, and not in the best of ways. But again, the songwriting, the melodic rock songwriting, I'd love to have a remix version of this. As it is now, I can listen to this album and appreciate it sort of a guilty pleasure, but I certainly wouldn't introduce anybody, interested in getting into Aldo's music with this album. I'd say you start with the first album, then work your way up. Still some good songs on it. Long time before I could find it on CD. It didn't sell very well, so this is a US CD version of Twitch. No hits off it. There was a video made for the song Rumors of You. There's no lyrics in this either. It's just a lot of credits. He thanks just about everybody under the sun on this. And then Aldo disappeared for, years. And it wasn't until 1990 that he sort of came up for air again, thanks to someone who he had befriended way back in 1983 when a young man by the name of John Bon Jovi was putting a band together and working on his first album. And Aldo sang background vocals and played keyboards on the first Bon Jovi album. So, one good turn deserves another. In 1990, Aldo and John worked together on the Young Guns 2 Blaze of Glory album. Aldo played acoustic guitar and helped with the arrangements on the entire album, and then they started to work on Aldo's next album. Now, my understanding is that Aldo had to stop recording, or else CBS would have grabbed the next album, and he didn't want to record for them anymore, so he waited it out. Eventually, unfortunately, I think this album came out about 2 years too late. If you watched our Best of 1991 episode, I talk about this album in a pretty good amount of detail. Blood on the Bricks came out summer 1991. Another great melodic rock album. This one's more melodic hard rock. Yeah, it's not that it's heavy, it's just heavier. A lot of good people playing on this album. Kearney Aronoff on drums, Randy Jackson on bass. He produced this with John Bon Jovi. Originally, it was going to be produced by Bruce Fairbairn or Bob Rock. I think it would have sounded a little bit better if it was. Most notably, one of the guys that I don't think he plays on the album itself, but he ended up in his touring band is this guy here by the name of Phil X, who's currently Bon Jovi's guitarist. So these things come around, right? All sorts of potential hit singles off of this album. Someday, Medicine Man, Bang Bang, Young Love, This Ain't Love, Modern World. It's a great album, and it's kind of sank without a trace. Summer 1991, it wasn't the time for melodic rock like that anymore, unfortunately. So what record companies do, typically, is when an artist switches labels and there's even a chance at renewed success, they have to reissue some old stuff. So later on in the summer of 1991, CBS or Sony responded with this, a portrait of Aldo Nova. Get it? Portrait Records. And this is just, I think, an 18-song compilation. Most of the first album's on here, big chunk of Subject, and 3 songs from Twitch. It's still a pretty good primer for anybody interested in getting into his music, but you know, the timing was, it's always like, oh, we better put something out. Although there is a fairly good write-up in here about Aldo's career, and I learned some things that I didn't know that weren't in the credits of those first few albums. And then that was it. Say that was it for a while. Then all of a sudden, I saw this album sometime around 1996, even though it's got a copyright date of 95 on it. This thing called Nova's Dream featuring Aldo Nova. And I say this thing, I'm really not sure how you classify this. I call it an Aldo Nova album. This is basically, he did everything himself. He was always kind of a one-man band. He basically, you know, he could play everything except drums. He could probably play drums too. This came out in Canada on Chakra Alternative Music, and ultimately this was distributed by BMG. I don't know if it came out anywhere else in the world. About half of this is instrumental, and there are a few songs on here with vocals. But basically, this is an album where he just did whatever he wanted to do. There's a long write-up. That's him in the studio, his home studio. He did whatever he wanted to do on this album. You know, some of this, the songs on here were dedicated to his favorite guitar players, so played in that style. For example, he's got a song called Carlito's Way, which is dedicated to Carlos Santana. So, you know, he's got one on Dream Walk, that's sort of a tribute to David Gilmour. I don't listen to this all that much. I think it's actually quite hard to find these days, and it's marginal whether you would consider an Aldo Nova album even or not. The next thing I got was a Columbia House special. Even though I didn't have anything different on it, but just called The Hits. And this came out on Sony in 2006. And unlike the Portrait of Aldo Nova compilation, this has 15 songs and an even 5 songs from each of the 3 Sony albums, which for some reason doesn't make it as good a compilation as the first one. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just more used to it. And in 2018, he came out with an EP called Aldo Nova 2.0. And I was really excited to order this. I ordered it as soon as I made available, and I got it. And I got to be honest with you, I was a little bit disappointed because the 7 songs on here, 6 of them are remakes from his first album. So I don't know if he was trying to remake the first album, and if so, why didn't he do all 10 songs? But the saving grace on this is track 7 called I'm a Survivor. It's a new song, first new song of his in years, and it's really good. And it's got me really excited about this Life and Times of Eddie Gage. He's a great singer, great guitar player, great keyboard player, great songwriter. You know, he's kind of do a little bit of everything. And like I said, he's very active on Facebook, so I'd recommend following him. And if you're into melodic rock, 80s melodic rock, and you've never checked out Aldo Nova, I think you'd like it. And it's not a particularly big catalog to get into either. It's kind of short, sweet, and to the point. So hope this leads somebody to go down the road and check out Aldo Nova a little bit further than fantasy. Let me know what you think. And thank you for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions.